let's discuss this truck. So this is a Battle Motors truck. It's the first one I've driven, and it steers like a boat. It reminds me like in these pirate movies where they're yelling at each other like, you know, turn 40 degrees starboard, and they're like spinning the wheel. That's what it's like to drive the Battle Motors. The Autocar that I was in, that is in the other content I have, it seems like it takes very little input into the steering wheel to get a lot of action on the steering. So, yeah, it's different. Is it different bad? Probably. Like, I'd like to be able to like move the wheel and get more return. But the trade-off, I believe, is because it's a low-entry truck, so you're sitting ahead of the wheels a little bit, as opposed to the Autocar sitting above. The Autocar probably has a lot more room to give that steering, is my speculation. But I don't build trucks. But I think that's the difference. And when you're talking about these trucks, really, reviewing a truck should probably be talking to the driver, talking to the person who fixes them, and talking to the person who pays the bills. Because all three are going to have a different perspective. You might have a truck that's not very comfortable for a driver, but it's if it's low maintenance or low serviceability or affordable, the guy paying the bill might say, "Oh, that's a great truck. You know, it costs very little to run that truck, and repairs are easy and cheap." And the guy that fixing them might say, "Yeah, everything's designed really well, and parts are easily accessible, or you can source the parts easy." But if it's not a comfortable truck, then, you know, like, so yeah, there's different perspectives. So for me as a driver, yeah, initially getting in this truck, it's very comfortable. As far as like accessing it, it's a low entry truck. And there's a couple times already where I was kind of surprised when I stepped out of the vehicle and the curb was right there. Like, I'm used to having to like stretch a little bit before my feet touch the ground. And with this one, like, I would almost like hit the ground harder because I was like reaching for the ground, and then I would just hit it as soon as I stepped out. So I haven't gotten used to that. But that's different good. I like low entry. The trade-off is low entry puts your vantage point lower. And I feel like sitting higher in something like an Autocar makes you look down on the cars. And an easy fix would... Okay, when I was testing that Battle Motors, this is a thing I noticed. That top mirror that I use to line up the grips. So if I use that top mirror in this Autocar, I got that higher elevation looking down. So when two carts are close together, it's really easy to separate them. It's still a little tricky in the dark, but easier. In the Battle Motors, it sits low. It'd be like using that bottom mirror, and even that mirror's a little lower, and that's harder to line up. But add a mirror up in the corner here, and that might make it a little easier to be accurate with the arm to line up with the carts. Like, I can do it here. You'll see. But, you know, using that bottom mirror, it's not hard to line it up, but these are correctly placed. And you've probably seen some other content where people get a little creative with how they set their carts out. Not always 100% compliant. I've had a few videos where I rate people's cart placement, mostly just for fun. And they're not all 10 out of 10. You know, you got Jenga traps, you got carts next to mailboxes or cars, some are backwards, up the driveway past the sidewalk. And we'll tag stuff or we'll put notes on stuff requesting people to change it, but it's not always compliant. What we're seeing here is pretty good compliance. So not having that top mirror isn't a handicap, but there's been definitely a couple times today where I wanted to like look back, and it's harder to look back with this truck if I'm not looking down on the cam. So that's the trade-off. You got the comfort of low entry, but maybe not the same visibility, which is a little ironic because overall the visibility on this truck is really, really good. Like, there's a lot more glass on this truck than the Autocar. And I'm only comparing it to the Autocar because that's what I was normally driving. So there's a lot of truck manufacturers out there. But the Battle motors compared to the Autocar, it's probably a lot like comparing a Mack truck to a Peterbilt as far as like visibility. Once you get into the nitty-gritty details, there's probably a lot of difference. But for today, we're just going to talk about this Battle motors with the Autocar. See how I see that mailbox blocks my view, so I can't really see exactly. Like the mailbox is like I'm looking in my mirror, and that's all I see is the mailbox and not the cart. With the Autocar, it's a little bit easier to use that top mirror and the higher vantage point of sitting higher to look down and be accurate in that scenario. So yeah, I was talking trade-off. So you sit lower, blah blah blah. One truck sits higher, one sits lower, and there's trade-offs. But there's a lot of glass. So overall, you have a lot of visibility. I do appreciate that. The cab is very roomy and spacious. That's nice. What I would recommend, and this is to anyone who designs trucks, is kind of like put in list or put in an order or list the things drivers interact with the most and try to like prioritize comfortability around that. So a steering wheel clearly is what I'm engaged with the most, so that should be priority on like its placement, maybe even make it adjustable. And this joystick here, I said it when I was talking about the trash body, but I really like this design, and maybe I would put it a little bit further out, but this joystick layout is way more ergonomic than the Autocar. The Autocar has that extra pad, and it sits a little different. Sometimes I feel like I gotta turn my shoulder a little bit to use it, and I could probably correct some of that myself, but out of the factory, I feel like this might be a little bit nicer. They're both vocational trucks, like they're both coming from factories oriented at designing trucks for work, like for this type of work. And the Autocar, I do like it, and I just this is a little nicer. This is okay. This is a lot better. The buttons by the joystick, that's not bad. Maybe I would prefer it a little bit because now my arm's always in contact with it. That kind of bugs me. Maybe I just want just a little bit more room. But overall, this is, yeah, I do like this. It's different and different good. What else is different? Well, there's a lot of things different. The steering I don't like, though. I don't like having to steer as much as I do. There's a couple cul-de-sacs that are a little trickier to navigate. There's a few dead-end streets that I ran with an Autocar and actually got it to turn around on the street at the dead end. There wasn't a turnaround at the end of the street, but I was able to get it to turn around. This truck, I wasn't even going to try it. I was like, this is going to be a disaster. And it was early in the morning. The backup alarms are really loud. Really loud. And stuff like if I do a 10-point turn, just forward, back, kind of like Austin Powers getting stuck in a hallway with a little electric cart. That's what this truck would look like trying to turn around on these streets. And granted, there's probably a lot of these people that design these trucks with, it's like, well, these weren't intended to go down dead-end streets. That might be true, but it happens, you know. Not every street's a nice little grid pattern laid out perfectly. There's a lot of these towns that have tighter streets or dead-end streets or funny loops and cul-de-sacs. So I give that one to the Autocar as far as steering, navigating tighter spots, even though they're all big trucks. What else would I like to see? It's big though. I do like this cab for the most part. I imagine a rearload guy would probably enjoy this, as long as they don't have to like back up into tight spaces. That might get trickier. But if you're a rearload team running with this, you probably enjoy it. Lots of room, lots of visibility.